Introduce the legend, the trailblazer, the Oracle of Gettysburg, Miss Deb Novotny.
Yeah!
Thank you. I thought you were going to say what Mike Weiss said.
Uh-oh.
The infamous.
Infamous.
I don't know.
Oh,
Mike was a curator at the park. And I didn't run into him much, so I don't know why he said infamous Deb Novotny.
Oh, my.
Anyway, thank you for coming. It's so much fun celebrating. And when I was thinking about 50 years, and I'm thinking, that means I'm old.
Oh.
That's what it means, I'm old. But I guess I was one of the younger ones when I started. So now I'm one of the oldsters. So I just found out that two of our guides that guided before me, actually three I think, have retired, have turned in their licenses, including the one that goes way back to 1961.
Oh.
Yeah, and it really floored me. Does anybody know Bill Bowling? I mean, if you see Bill Bowling, he's like the Howard Hughes of the guides. He's a recluse, you know, and he doesn't, we don't even know where he lives. But I heard he gave up his license, and he's like 1966.
Oh.
So, right now, I think I'm number 4.
Wow.
We got about 129 guides. And I know Roy Frampton, you might know him.
Mm-hmm.
Roy Frampton is now the oldest senior guide.
Mm-hmm.
And Clay Rebert and Terry Fox. And
then you.
Me.
Wow.
And that's scary. Because you kind of realize, you have all this years behind you, how much do you have in front of you?
20 more at least.
20 more?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I do remember Jim Tate. I used to tell Jim, when you started guiding in 1951, I was in diapers. That's what I told him. And he was 93.
Whoa.
When he went to the hospital, but he was guiding up to the month before he went in the hospital.
Wow.
But he died in the hospital. He was 90. Wow. He was born in 1918.
We're going to meet at the Timbers Farm in 2045.
2045.
20 years from now. Yes,
20
ma'am.
years from now, we're going to be in the... I don't think I'm going to go through that brush and... Well, you know those little things grabbed my feet all the time.
I know, but you done did it over rock walls and everything
Jagger
else.
bushes.
Yeah.
See, you don't know what a jagger bush is unless you grew up in western Pennsylvania.
Well, I didn't grow up in Western, but I remember jagger
You remember
bushes.
jagger bushes?
Is that a pricker bush?
Well, what do they call them around here? Ramble?
Bramble.
Brambles?
I always thought it was just jagger
It's
bushes.
jagger bushes to me. So, where did you grow up?
I grew up just in Mechanicsburg,
Oh,
in
well,
the Harrisburg area. We
that's
call
here?
them jagger bushes if
bushes.
you run through the woods
Okay.
and they got you.
So, when Tammy said, you know what, do whatever I want, you know, about my guiding career, I thought, well, you know, how about in my 50 years here and my likes and dislikes and experiences that I've had. So I put kind of all that into this little program here. So it's not just stories about my tours, but hopefully you'll be entertained a little bit.
We'll definitely be entertained.
I'm in Evergreen Cemetery right there, and Brian Kennel took this picture, and I asked him if I could have it for my business card, or not a business card, but my business picture. So that was a few years ago. You can tell I'm older than, but he did a really good job, because you can see the tombstones in the background. This was right behind the gatehouse, but I'm in focus. So let's go to the next one. Yeah, becoming a battlefield guide. I can tell you in all certainty that on March 15th, 1975, there were 11 inches of snow on the battlefield.
Wow.
50 years ago. And it came like during the late evening and night. And I was coming out because I had to take my guide test, my oral test. And I stayed at Larson's Quality Inn. That's the place that used to be right by Lee's headquarters. And they called, the park called my parents, because that was the phone number that they had for me, and said, tell her not to come, because there's 11 inches of snow predicted for the battlefield, and a lot of the places will be closed. And my dad said, too late. She's there already. And 8 o'clock, I was supposed to be over at the park when the visitor center opened and do my oral test. I waited 3.5 years just about between my written test and my oral test.
Wow.
I wanted to get this over with. And they gave me the option, don't do it, you know, because Culp's Hill will be closed, Little Round Top will be closed, Devil's Den will be closed. And I said, I want to do it. And I did it. Okay? Had to be the 2-hour tour. And since I couldn't go to Culp's Hill, see, back in those days, you did the first day all the way to Barlow's Knoll. Then you went through the town on Stratton Street. And then you went down East Confederate, which you know very well because you like to run downhill, right? and then over Culp's Hill. Well, since it was closed, they had me drive up to the parking lot of an elementary school that was nearby. It's gone now. That building is gone. But they said, go up into this parking lot and tell us what you would have said. All the way out down East Confederate, Spangler Spring, over both Culp's Hills, and then back to the Baltimore Pike. Tell us what you would have said. Okay. I had practiced it before. You know, I had come out at least once or twice before and just practiced it and had done it in my mind. But that was a challenge. Then we went through the cemetery. You drove into the cemetery back then, and I did the stop there, and they had plowed that already, so we could go into that, no problem. Then we went down the opposite way we go today of Hancock Avenue, Cemetery Ridge. And so we went down. Well, Little Round Top was closed. Okay, so they said, well, pull onto this road. It was the Wheatfield Road, and park there. Well, you're not allowed to park on a 2-way road now, son. But they told me to do that, so I did that. Tell us what you would have said at the stop on Little Round Top, and then while you're at it, tell us also what you would have said in the Devil's Den, because that's the next place you would go. So I did that. I said to myself, I'm not going to pass this. They're probably, this is not good. Because that's, you know, it's totally what you didn't expect to have happen, and you're dealing with it. All right, so then we went out to the Peach Orchard, went over to the Confederate line, up the Confederate line, and then back into the visitor center. And it was 2 hours. I did it all in 2 hours. And that's what you had to do. You couldn't be over 2 hours or much under it. So then the guide, who was Dick Fox, and that would be Terry Fox's uncle, he was a West Ender. He worked out at the West End Guide Station on 30 West, Chambersburg Pike. He was the guide in the back seat, and then Nora Somm was the guide supervisor. And she was old Army. I don't know what her rank ever was, but during the tour, during my test, she didn't give me much feedback. Okay, but Dick Fox in the back, he was saying, now, this is what you could say here, okay, when you become a guide. He was giving me encouragement. She was not. They talked for 30 minutes, whether I should pass or not. I was on edge. They said, go in the museum, just drive around, walk around, and then come at 10:30 or so, and we'll tell you. So they passed me, first time. There was no second time. Now there's a second time. If you fail the oral test, they tell you what you did wrong, and if you correct it, most likely you will pass the second time. Hardly anybody passes on the first time anymore. But if I didn't pass, I'd have to go through the whole written thing again.
Wow.
And my test was all 200 fill-in-the-blank questions and essays. And they didn't read the essays unless there was a tie with somebody else. So the 100 people that took the test when I took the written test, 22 passed. But it wasn't in competition with each other like it is now. You just had to get 80% or better. And I think I was right in the middle, number 11 out of the 22. But you had to wait until somebody died or quit guiding, because they only wanted 75 guides back then. But there is a little aside to this whole story. I should have been a guide before 1975, because Nora had just come to be the guide supervisor in 1975. She was replacing somebody, I don't know what his name was. But anyway, she was doing a cleaning out of the file cabinets. Way in the back of one of the cabinets were 3 guide tests that had passed that were never called for the oral test. And they were stuck back there. She told me this after she retired from the Park Service. So she said, we can't give the test again until these 3 take their oral test. That's why it was 3.5 years that I waited. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but hey, that's okay. It worked out.
Yeah.
And by the way, those other 2, they became guides in 1975 also.
Wow.
Wow.
But one has passed away, and the other lives in Connecticut. He gave up his guide license a long time ago. There's nobody from my class of those 22. I think all 22 passed the oral test. So nobody's left but me. It's like these reunions, like Pearl Harbor, that each year they had reunions and less showed up. So that's why it's scary. So this is what the guides wore on their shoulder. Well, the guide uniform for women, we couldn't do it on our shoulder because the next one shows what I wore when I first became a guide.
Oh my.
Blue vest with a mock turtleneck. Do you know how hot it is in August in Gettysburg on the battlefield?
Oh my gosh.
Mock turtleneck. But that's the way they worked it out, with a gray skirt. In 1979, they let the women guides wear slacks, gray slacks. 1979 was the last time I ever wore a skirt or a dress. Okay. You'll never find me in one. Then they came up with that patch. I think it was my 2nd year of guiding, and that's the one that we're still wearing. It's actually a drum. Can you see a drum? Mm-hmm. And
Yes.
it's got the 3 branches there. You got the artillery on the red, which is, of course, the scarlet is the red trim for artillerymen. The yellow has crossed sabers, and that would be cavalry. Yellow trim for the cavalry. Blue, that would be for the infantry, and the bugle. That's going to be changing in the next year or so. The park is going to give us a new patch to wear. We don't know what it looks like yet. We've seen a mock-up, but they asked us for suggestions, and I gave one of my suggestions. And so that one will be phased out somehow. So that's the old uniform. After a while, they said we didn't have to wear the blue vest. But we still had the thing. But then you lost your... because we couldn't wear that on this nylon kind of blouse. So then we went, everybody wears the same light blue and gray. That's our colors. Okay, next one. This is probably about 1980. We always had a guide picnic. And this was held at the Sheeds souvenir place. If you're old enough, you might remember it. It was by Buford statue and Reynolds statue. There was a little souvenir place there, and they had a little a picnic area kind of too. But I put this in because, well, you see me with the sunglasses. It's my glasses turn. They just automatically turn. My brother makes my glasses. He's an optician. Nice to have an optician in the family. Okay, and then go to the 3rd person to my left. He's in the back there. No, down. Oh, right there. That's Terry Fox. Now, Terry was the American history teacher at the Gettysburg High School. This is probably 1979, I think. But I really wanted you to see the second person. Well, actually, the first person on the far left is Dick Fox. So he's the one that passed me on the oral test, helped me pass me.
This
Way,
guy
way
right
over,
back.
way over, far left. The one second in is Ralph Butt. Ralph passed the test in 1915 when the park first licensed
Oh, my.
guides. He was still
Wow.
guiding when I was guiding.
Holy
And
crap.
he worked out at the West End. It's still there. It's the Comfort Station. We call it the West End Guide Station, but it's volunteers go out there sometimes, I guess, and help with directions and all. But when I knew him, Ralph only liked to play checkers and flirt with the girls.
That's a good man.
But just imagine that. He passed in 1915.
Wow.
And he was still guiding. And I'll be his neighbor in Evergreen Cemetery when my time comes, because he's a stone's throw away from my spot in Evergreen. There's only, I think, 3 guides left who are guiding from this group, and the others either quit guiding or have passed on.
Is Roy in that one?
No, Roy is not in this one. I don't know why he wasn't. But I will talk about when we go to the Evergreen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th one in. He kind of looks like Alec Guinness.
Yep.
1, 2,
No.
3,
One more over,
4,
Carl.
5, 6, 7.
To the
Over
left.
that way a little bit more. Right there.
Yep.
That's Prof. Fiddler.
Oh.
Prof. Fiddler, Robert Fiddler, taught American history at the Gettysburg High School with Colonel Sheets.
Zeb, who are the other 3 ladies there?
The other 3 ladies. Okay,
Mhm.
to my immediate left would be Betty Weaver,
Mm-hmm.
and then Kathy Lane. Her dad was Walt Lane, who took a lot of pictures in his day of the battlefield. He's the one that took the picture of the modern sharpshooter's nest in Devil's Den that's in the book Long Encampment. You're supposed to see a ghost in that. And boy, you have to have a good imagination to see the ghost in that picture. But Kathy told me to look for the ghost. And then the lady on the far right there is Betty Fry. In 1979, I think it was 14 people became guides. 7 were women.
Wow.
Half of the ones who passed in 1979. Linda Heinzelman was her name. Linda Clark was one of the 1979, and she didn't come to this picnic. But you can see it's mostly males. And that's the way it's always been.
We're gonna fix it.
We're going to fix that.
We're gonna fix it.
I hope you fix it. Next one.
Next one.
That was my first guide station. It's the old electric map visitor center. I think it was 1974 that the Rosenstiel family sold the building. This would be right across from the entrance to the National Cemetery on the Town Road. And if you look at the second story, the far window on the right was the guide station. That's where we could hang out. Nothing was upstairs except, well, you could tell somebody had lived up there. There was an old, very old dining room table, and it was kind of dusty, but you went through, and the office of the superintendent was up there. Nora Som's office was up there, but nothing else. Everything else was, the museum part was first story and then down below. How many of you saw the electric map? Good. Yeah, good. You know you can still see it? It's in Hanover. I have not gone to Hanover. Have you done that yet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you like it?
It's okay. It's not the same map. It's the same map, but it's just not set up quite the same. And as I remember it as a kid, it explained the war pretty well. Maybe the person explaining it wasn't doing as good a job.
So it's not a tape that you listen to?
No, they still.
No.
He still used it when I went, because I went with Troy Harmon, and they played the actual tape. Like they have the recording.
Oh, we didn't hear that.
Yeah.
You
No.
heard it live then.
The guy that
Really?
had done most of the repair work was explaining everything that was going on there. If you knew the battle, you understood the progression of it. So
Oh wow.
But it's
Yeah,
not
they do
a
have it.
bleachers.
I'd like to hear that. That'd be interesting.
No, it's not a bleachers.
Not
It's
bleachers. You
like a
just
No.
stand
warehouse.
around.
You stand all the
Yeah,
way around.
it's in the round, and you just stand around there.
Yeah.
I
But
guess I should go see it if
they
he's still has-
turned all the lights to LEDs. So they've
Oh,
actually
they're not the Christmas tree bulbs.
they
Do you know that's what it
No.
was?
they reused they made
First
them
time I
look
saw
like
it was
that,
like that.
but they used LEDs, but they have the same type of looking bulbs.
Uh,
So, but it's so that it's less
They weren't-
easier to work.
Yeah, it was less heat, and they lasted longer.
Yeah.
So of course nothing is left of this building, and we were moved from that room to the back room, and then we were moved from the back room down into the basement, where they once had the Eisenhower Visitor Center, but they put the guide office down there because I don't know what they did with the Eisenhower Visitor Center after we moved down. But anyway, this was my home until 2008 as a guide. The Rosens still stand, which was a private, they first had their first one down at Big Round, between Little Round Top and Sedgwick Statue. It was right there where the Porta Johns go in the summer now. That was the first Rosen Still Museum when I was a kid. The first time I ever came to Gettysburg, I was 11 years old, 1962. On my insistence, I made my parents bring me here. And every year after that, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, we had to make at least one trip to Gettysburg. Because I loved this place. I felt something coming out of the ground. It was like a magnetism. And I still feel it. That's the funny thing about that. I still feel the vibes of history. Not ghosts, but vibes. Okay, next one. So back in 2018, Women Guides celebrated the 50th anniversary of Women Guides, because the first one was 1968. Barb Shutt was her name. By the way, she lived in what's now Mr. G's ice cream parlor. It was called Twin Sycamores. That was her home. And she passed away just a few years ago. We might see her in Evergreen Cemetery. But we had 17 women guides for our 50th anniversary, and here's 12 that showed up at a very special place. I don't know, from when I was little, the High Watermark Memorial is my special place. My favorite monument on the battlefield is nearby, the 72nd Pennsylvania, and that little copse of trees is special to me. So there I am with the sunglasses on again, because my glasses just automatically turn that way. Let's see, the one to the left of me is Louise Arnold,
Oh, no way.
which you know, right?
Yeah,
Louise
that's
Arnold.
right.
And then on the
Miss
far
Linda.
left is Linda Clark. Okay, you probably don't know any of the others, do you?
What year is that, Deb?
2018. 2018.
Yes.
So 3 in this picture, 3, I believe, aren't guiding anymore. We now have 15 women guides. There must be 2 in the picture. There's some that weren't in this. Like Sue Boardman, she moved away, but she still has her license, but I don't think we'll see her much on the battlefield. So we do need more women guides. And I've been saying that for years. So next time that test is given, I'm expecting,
Working on it. Got it.
don't lose all that knowledge you have up in your head. Next one. Right in the middle there is Colonel Jacob Sheeds. And of course you know who's on either side of him. Okay, in March, I think it was late March 1963, John F. Kennedy and his wife decided they wanted to see Gettysburg. I don't know if they'd ever been here before. and they called the park, or Secret Service guys probably called the park and said, the president wants a guide, and he wants a Democrat guide.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I don't know if John Kennedy knew this, but about 99% of 1963 population of Adams County were Republicans. But Colonel Sheeds was a Democrat. And also, he was a World War II veteran. And so was John F. Kennedy, Navy. Colonel Sheeds was in the Army, I believe. And he was also in the Korean War. But he taught American history at the Gettysburg High School starting, I think, 1934. Then he had to, of course, go to Europe and for World War II. And then he came back, and then he retired, I think, in the 70s, early 70s. But that was probably the climax of his career as a park ranger and licensed battlefield guide and American history teacher, to take the President of the United States around on a tour. And if you think about it, it's March 63. You know what happened November 63. Kennedy was assassinated. And by the way, Colonel Sheeds never had a driver's license.
Wow.
Okay? Now, guides are supposed to offer to drive so the driver can see, doesn't have to worry about the traffic, the little 8th graders running around and deer crossing your path and things like that. Well, Colonel couldn't drive, so Kennedy drove, and it was a convertible. And he said, now this is in the day before bucket seats in cars, so it was a bench seat. So John Kennedy was driving, and then Jackie Kennedy was in the middle, and then on the far front side would be Colonel Sheeds. So he always talked about this, this moment in time when the most powerful person in the world was in the front seat with him, and the most beautiful woman in the world was in the front seat right beside him. So he always told that story. Next one. Is it going? Here we go. Tour. Not to know the battle story. I knew the battle story. You have to know the battle story to pass the test. What Colonel Sheeds helped me with was the human side of the story, which I always liked better even than the battle action. Because, even if you have military groups around, you got to tell them some human stories. It's not just this regiment did this, or this company of this regiment was over here and in the flanking action. But most people, 99% of the people that I do take on tour, and we all take on tour, are just coming here to be educated. They don't really know, the ins and outs. They might be a Civil War enthusiast. They might go to a lot of Civil War battlefields, but it's the human side that's remembered when it's long gone. Maybe not the names of the individuals I may tell the story about, but it's the story behind the story that sticks. So Colonel Sheeds definitely told me a lot because he knew his backyard. He was born on Carlisle Street. The house.
Did he
still
own the
stands.
Sheets house?
No, that was a fifth cousin once removed.
Oh, wow.
Wow. That's the way he always says it. He's a relative of the
That's cool.
Carrie Sheeds house. Yeah. Has the shell in it. That's when you're talking about,
Yes.
right? Okay, next one. Of course, I wanted to become a guide when I was at my first visit. My dad hired a guide, but I also had some other goals, and one was to teach American history to juniors at the Gettysburg High School. I would not be happy any other place. I knew that when I was 11 years old. Okay, so that was a goal that I set for myself. I can be a teacher for 9 months and a guide for 3 months. It would be heaven. Okay, so it happened in 1980 that I got the teaching job in Gettysburg High School, 11th grade American history. And the course went from 1850 to World War II's end. So yeah, 1863 was right in there. My students learned their backyard whether they wanted to or not. The other teacher of American history, along with me at the old high school, which was on Lefevre Street, like close to Mr. G's ice cream parlor. It's now an elementary school. I think they call it Lincoln School. What was Terry Fox. So this is kind of cool. This is cool what I'm going to be telling you. It's sad too. It's cool, but it's sad. In 1934, Colonel Sheeds and Prof. Fiddler taught American history at Gettysburg High School. 1934, they started teaching together, side by side. And one was a Democrat, one was a Republican, and they had some heated discussions, I guess, before school started. But that was the case. And then Colonel Sheeds, I think, retired in 74. Now, they were both battlefield guides, remember. Then Terry Fox took Colonel Sheeds' place, and he was a battlefield guide. And then Prof. Fiddler retired, and I took his place. 2 battlefield guides teaching American history at Gettysburg High School. Terry never made it to the school that I'm standing at right there in 1998 because he retired from the old school in 1996, I think it was. And they didn't hire a battlefield guide to take his place. Then I retired in 2008, and they didn't replace me with a battlefield guide. So think about that for a second. From 1934 until 2008, at least 1 battlefield guide, but sometimes 2, taught American history to the juniors in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. See? That's pretty cool. Yeah, that is cool. It's kind of an old tradition, and I don't know if a lot of people realize that, But this school is now on the Harrisburg Road, and I had Tammy take this picture, right? You took this picture.
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay. That 1998 cornerstone was actually the stepstone to get into the Kime farmhouse. They tore down the historic Kime farmhouse that was there at the time of the battle. Gordon's Georgians would have gone right through. In fact, when I taught the Battle of Gettysburg to my juniors, I would say, see that corner over there, kids? Gordon's Jordans are coming right across through us. They looked at me and thought I was crazy. So they put that as the cornerstone, or I don't know, date stone, on the new school. That's kind of cool that they saved that. So if you go in the front door of the high school, it's to the right. Next one. Okay, I had another goal, and that was to buy a pre-Civil War stone house. And I drove all over Adams County, and there were a lot of stone houses all over. And I actually had a contract on one, but I couldn't sell my first house that I bought in Cashtown. It wasn't old enough for me. It was 1894. I wasn't old enough. I could never live. I mean, I can visit, but I can never live in a house like this. It's too modern for me. You know, I have to feel that history. So that contract fell through. That was on Centennial Road. It was a nice stone house, needed some work. So then I found this one on the Fairfield Road. This is my house. It's not stone, it's brick. But it was a 1-room or 2-room schoolhouse at the time of the battle.
Oh, wow.
Wright's Georgia Brigade used this as a field hospital.
Wow.
There were 9 Georgians buried in my yard somewhere until 1871, when they were dug up and sent. Their remains were sent to Savannah, Georgia, Laurel Grove Cemetery. And of course, I've been there, and I found my guys.
Wow.
They do have stones. I knew what their names were, and it was kind of fun finding them. And I bought it in 1988, and there are no ghosts in my house.
I was going to say, you have ghosts.
No ghosts in my house. And you know, these 8th graders, when you take them around the battlefield, they want to hear ghost stories. And I don't tell ghost stories on my tour. I tell history stories again. And I told them about my house one time. This one school from Ohio, I think they were. And they listened to my story, you know, and how there were 9 Georgians here. And this one 8th grader put his hand up and he said, they're there. They just won't bother you because you tell their story on your tours, you know. Out of the mouth of babes, a 13-year-old. I never thought of it that
Speak
way.
the truth.
But maybe that's why.
Was it psychic? That's
Well,
Did he know them?
he just said that they have to be there. They have to be there. It's just that they're not going to bother you because they like you.
It makes sense.
Yeah, I know.
It's the multiverse.
Okay. So next. This is one of the first tours I ever gave that I'm going to tell you about this. Okay. Now, like I told you before, I'm the fourth woman guide, so almost all, people come here and they expect a man guide. They do. Back way, not now, but back then. So I went down, they called me down, it was my turn, and I go over and I see the guy at the desk, they're going to introduce me. And I just looked at him and I said, I said to myself, you're military. You could just tell. And I think officer, I wasn't sure, but I thought, yeah, he looks like a colonel maybe. And so, but I didn't say anything. I introduced myself. He introduced himself. We started to go out on battle. First day of the battlefield, I pulled out my map. My fishhook map. Okay? Red and blue and sickles out there, in that V shape. We're out on the first day's battlefield. And this is what this guy said to me. I'd say he was about 60 years old, maybe, and I'm in my 20s, But he had that look like, what does this woman know about military and battle? And he had that look. You get it. If you're a woman guide, at least back then. But anyway, he looked at my map, and this is what he said. Well, at least you got the colors right.
Oh my.
I knew exactly what he meant because I took Colonel Sheed's adult class. He had one on Adams County and one on the Battle of Gettysburg. And he would have these maps from West Point as a handout. And at West Point, they always put the U.S. troops in blue on the map and the enemy in red. That's the West Point way. And that's, when he said that, I knew he was military. We had a normal 2-hour tour, and by the end of the tour, he knew that I did know something about this battle. Because he was definitely firing questions at me, and sometimes you get that. They test the guide. Challenging questions. Okay. So, but there are some other women guides that have had horror stories, and I'm not going to tell you any of them, but this is one of the rare ones that I ever had that most of the time, nowadays, you don't get that hardly at all. But back in the day when it was just men guiding, and those first women, number 1, Barb Shutt, and number 2, Janet Geis, and number 3, Mary Swope, and me, it was challenging to be a woman guide. But you won't have that problem now. Next one. Back in 1997, this was a very, very important year because the year before some remains had been found near the railroad cut for the first day's battlefield. And they said that they were soldier. There was a soldier. Yeah. And it was like 80% a male skeleton, and they were going to bury the bones in the National Cemetery. So the park found out that there were, they thought, 2 living Civil War widows. And they invited them to come. And they came for the burial, and the tombstone simply says Civil War Remains, and it's very close to the New York State Monument, if you don't know where it is. It's not one of the flat stones where the Gettysburg dead are, but just away from it. So the one on top is Daisy Anderson, and the one down at the bottom is Alberta Martin. And actually, they are at the angle here. You can see right behind the guy with the Civil War uniform on, the 106th Pennsylvania at the high water mark. See the 3 drums on the top making the trefoil of the 2nd Corps patch? They're both in their 90s, and this is 1997. So if you're doing math, I think you're figuring it out, aren't you?
Yeah.
They married Civil War veterans. Daisy married a USCT, United States Colored Troops soldier, and Alberta Martin married a 4th Alabama. And they fought over there on Big Round Top, Little Round Top, actually closer to, well, they would have hit the 16th Michigan, maybe in the 44th New York on Little Round Top slope. So there you have it, the last two widows. In their 20s, they married veterans in their 70s. 50 years difference between them. But women couldn't get good jobs in 1910, 1913. Seamstresses, laundresses, house cleaners, And of course, when the old guy kicked the bucket, who got the pension? These nurses in their 20s at the old soldiers' homes. So, but after this, and this made the news all over the country, I think it was a lady in South Carolina that admitted, I married an old veteran too. And she has since passed away. So we don't have any more Civil War widows left. In fact, we had the daughter of a Civil War soldier, who actually, the Civil War soldier came to Gettysburg in 1938 for the Eternal Light Peace Memorial. Her name was Irene Triplett. She was, her dad was 83 when she was born, and her mother was 33 years old when she was born. In like 1931, I think it was. Irene Triplett. She passed away Memorial Day, 2020. And people hear that and say, oh, March is when COVID started. She died from COVID. And I said, no, she fell and broke her hip.
Oh,
And it never healed.
Wow.
So if you have a cane, use it.
Oh.
That's what my doctor told me. Don't be afraid to use a cane when you get older, because you fall and break your hip. That might be curtains for you. And by the way, she was collecting the pension. Irene Triplett was still collecting the pension. She was mentally challenged, so she was allowed, even though she was a daughter of a soldier, to keep collecting $73.13 a month. That was the Civil War pension. Now we don't have any more pensioners as of 2020. Next one. This is one of the coolest persons I've taken on a tour. Bushman. This is Strong Vincent Bushman on the left side. This is an evergreen cemetery. I'll take you to this if we get there. And he was born in late September 1863. He was named for General Strong Vincent because Vincent died in the Bushman house. This is the Lewis, Lewis Bushman farm. That is the one east of, behind Little Round Top. We got a lot of Bushmans around here. We've got Michael Bushman. That's what they were using as an Airbnb, and I hear they're not doing that anymore. Is that right? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah. And also there's Emmanuel Bushman, and as a kid he used to romp all over Devil's Den. He talks about the big snake. He's the one that has the source of, there's a big snake called the devil, and that's why Devil's Den is called Devil's Den. So Michael Bushman, Emmanuel Bushman, and Lewis Bushman. And then this is Strong Vincent Bushman. And that's your homework, Dale. How are they all related? How are they? I've been trying to find out. Who's related to who? Are they uncles or nephews or sons or... And I'm going to send you an email.
I was going to say, send me what you got. I'll look it up.
I will do that. If you
great.
accept
Thanks
that
a lot,
homework.
More time on the computer. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
know, but you like to do that.
He'll do it.
You helped me with Abigail Bowers Fillmore. And you helped me, what was the other one that you did? Oh, you're the ones that sent me the picture of the Gettysburg Rock in Iowa.
In Iowa.
In Iowa. I've never seen that yet.
Yeah,
I
I have
hope
family
to.
out there. We went to visit.
Near Cedar Rapids?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you did that. That was,
Yeah,
I
we
think,
did
one of
that,
the first things you did for me.
Yeah.
So you get A+ on your homework.
Oh.
Yep.
So if you want to take this challenge, I'll send you what I know.
Okay,
I'll
send
have to
me
make sure
everything.
we've got a new email. I'll have to make sure you've got the right. We got,
Oh,
got
okay.
the right one. Yeah.
Okay. But if you look over on the right side, let's do the next one. I think yeah. See Bessie? Bessie Bushman, she married a young.
106.
Bessie was born in 1900, I had her on a tour in 1990.
Wow.
This is Strong Vincent Bushman's daughter. And they named Strong Vincent Bushman because General Vincent, died there, was taken
Yeah.
there 5 days after he was wounded on Little Round Top. He died in their house. I had his daughter on a tour, and she was feisty. She's feisty. 90 years old. And you
Did
see
she
when-
tell you before she went that she was
Yeah.
his daughter? Did she?
Oh yeah, and when we go to the grave, I'm going to give a little P.S. to this story, about the story that Colonel Sheeds always told about this family. But she died at 105 years old,
Oh my.
and she was kind of frail when I had her, but she could walk, she could go places, and so that was kind of exciting. Next one. This is the Wortmans family reunion. They decided to come to Gettysburg, as many as could, hire a bus. I think they got one from the tour center. And they had 5 relatives who fought at Gettysburg. And they gave me the challenge to tell them where they fought. Where they fought. Well, 1 or 2 were on Culp's Hill. 1 or 2, I can't remember now, were at, it's called the Regulars Hill, the Ayers Avenue. And you come around, you get that good view of Little Round Top, the U.S. Regulars monuments are there. And 1, where was the other one? I think it was maybe at the Angle, someplace on Cemetery Ridge. And what they did was, you see the picture? There are 5 little kids. You can see them all. And that's my flag. I showed you that when I did the flag stories. This was the first time I ever took my flag that I sewed out on a tour. But this was a special tour. And there's 5 little kids. There's 3 there and 2 behind the flag. They had little flags that one for each kid, and they would stick it in the ground by the monument of where their relative was a part of.
Oh, wow.
Well, that was really cool.
Yeah.
That was really cool. And you see the organizer of the whole affair over there with the white hat on. And I went, yeah, that's me next door. But it was fun to take them all around, and they were proud to know where their relatives had fought, all on the Union side.
Where are they from?
They were from Pennsylvania somewhere, but I can't remember where. And of course, if you get a picture, if I take a picture of a group by the high water mark, that's a special tour. Okay? Because that's one of my special places on the battlefield. Look at this kid with the rifle, You
Yeah.
let's see, about 6 or 7 years old. You
Yeah.
can just see he's into it.
I don't remember that.
Next one. Now you might wonder, why is she
Is this an advertisement?
putting
Commercial break.
It's a commercial.
How many of you have used Dr. Scholl's Inner Souls?
You have.
The blue gel? Have you? I had the inventor.
Oh.
My goodness.
Oh.
Yeah. And I can't remember his name. I've been trying to find it, but
Dr. Scholl.
Wasn't Dr. Scholl?
no, it wasn't Dr. Scholl. It was somebody else.
No?
Maybe he did the very first ones.
Oh.
But these are the blue gel ones.
Okay.
And so anyway, this is what the guy told me. And I can't remember even how old he was. And this is before cell phones. I couldn't take a picture of him, I didn't carry a camera with me back then. But he said, they gave me an option. Either they gave me a lump sum for the invention, or I could get 10 cents for each pair they sold. I went for the lump sum.
Oh.
Well, he didn't know it was going to be
Right.
a hit.
Right.
They're still selling them.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
this was a long time ago, so he probably would have been a multi-millionaire had he done
Yeah.
10 cents for each one.
Yeah.
But he decided
Oh,
not
my.
to. Next one.
Oh, like Shark Tank.
You probably don't know this guy, but I bet you know the car he designed. The Ford Mustang. The first Ford Mustang.
That's
His name was Dale Haldeman. And he didn't tell me that he had designed it. His wife did. So he wasn't bragging, but he has since passed away. So they were kind of famous people, that I had but they're not really famous, but they did something famous. But I was always looking for a famous person. The next one,
You didn't say next slide.
oh, next slide. Next slide. Okay, who does he look like?
Johnny Cash.
Looks like Johnny Cash, right?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the story. I was done for the day. I had given my 2 tours, and I was just hanging out in the guide room, talking with some of the guides who were still there waiting for their tours. Matt Atkinson comes in. He's a park ranger. And says, Deb, I've got the tour for you. Johnny Cash is out there. I said, Johnny Cash is dead. and Matt said, no, he's out there. And his tour bus is here. And his band is here. You got to take him on a tour. Come on, take him on a tour. Everybody else was booked up, you know. I'm finished for the day. I want to go home. And Matt said, come on, he really wants a tour. Go out there. And his wife's here too, you know, June Carter. So I go out. Sure enough, it was the most dilapidated old tour bus you ever saw. And he was driving. His name is Terry Goffey. They're from Ohio. And he goes all around. He's gone to Ireland. He's become kind of big from when I met him. But he was driving the bus around and we did the tour. And I think his wife found me on Facebook and I became, you know. So I said, well, if you're ever in the area, let me know and I'd like to see your show. So in September 23, he was at Jim Thorpe. Do you know Jim Thorpe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was in this really nice, if you've ever gone to it, it's really cool. It's like a dinner theater, but then I was up above with Linda. Linda went with me because they sent me 2 free tickets. His wife sent me 2 free tickets. And he sounds like Johnny Cash, too. So every time, just happened a couple days ago, every time Matt Atkinson passes me, he's Ring of Fire, he sings, or what's the other big Johnny Cash song?
I walk the line.
I walk the line.
I walk the line. It's either one of those 2 songs that Matt will sing when he sees me. This was a while ago.
Wow.
But he was pretty good. And from the stage, he said, now I have a friend here. Where's Deb Novotny?
Oh.
And I'm up at the balcony. So he said, make sure you come down and see me at the end of the show. So I did. Okay, next one. Coming in the guide room and saying, oh, I just had Mary Tyler Moore on a tour. Oh, I had Richard Dreyfuss on a tour. I'm thinking to myself, when am I going to get somebody who's really famous? It happened in 2012. September 11th, 2012. I had this person on a tour.
Oh my.
On the far left. He is
Jim Lovell.
Apollo 13 commander.
Oh, wow.
He was 84 years old and always wanted to come see Gettysburg.
Wow, wow.
And his 2 grown daughters said, well, we're going to make arrangements. One of the daughters, and it's this one right here is Barbara, to my left, she got the place where they were going to stay. The double day, bed and breakfast. And then the other daughter who's taking the picture got the guide. And they just called the Guide Association. And I was the guide. And it was April 2012. I wasn't on duty. One of the other guides called me up and said, I have a tour here. See if you can fit it into your schedule. This was like April, okay? And the tour they wanted was in September. And the name is Jim Lovell. It can't be the Jim Lovell that we know. How many Jim Lovells are in the world, you know? And I called up the daughter. Her name was Susan. And she didn't say anything about him being Apollo 13. She just said, my dad's 84 and he always wanted to see Gettysburg and we don't want him to go alone, so the 2 daughters were going to come and his wife. And I said, oh, my dad, you know, he's up there too and we're always worried about him driving and doing things, so I know where you're at. She didn't say anything about him. So anyway, I'll go home and I looked up Jim Lovell and he has 2 daughters. and 2 sons. He lives in Illinois. Okay, so I said, well, maybe this is it. It was like a week before Susan called me up and said, maybe you heard that Neil Armstrong just passed away? And my dad was an astronaut, and he's going to want to go to the memorial service, and it might be the day we're supposed to come to Gettysburg. How flexible is your schedule?
Oh my!
Of course.
Completely rubber bandish.
I said, oh, I'm very flexible.
Don't be like.
I kept this a secret just in case it was the Jim Lovell that Tom Hanks played in the movie Apollo 13. And I remember Apollo 13. I remember them having the problem and how uptight everybody was and saying prayers, about them coming back safely. We didn't think they were going to make it back safely. It didn't sound good at all. So, they had the memorial service the day before, the day after, so we kept it to that date, September 11th. I'll never forget that because it's the day after my birthday, and of course it's 9/11. 2012. So this was kind of neat because he wanted a 3-hour tour, so we went all the way around, Every time we made a stop, he listened intently to my story. And then he walked a little bit away, and he had a camcorder. He's holding it in his hand, do you see it? And he's narrating into his camera what I had said, and he got it right. Wow. He was a quick learner. 84 years old. So, the next one.
Wow.
Next slide.
Oh my!
Of course.
High water mark.
Oh,
High water mark.
yeah.
And so you got to have a pose here by the high water mark. And so that's it. That's the climax, the pinnacle of my guiding career. Nothing can top that.
Huzzah.
Okay.
Huzzah, huzzah.
So that was kind of cool. And then the next one.
Okay, that's enough. There we go.
I bought one of these patches. That's the patch they actually wore. And I put it, I think I'm by the Virginia Monument here. One of the other guides, retired guides, he would just go around the battlefield and stop and, I guess, watch the tourists, maybe answer questions. And he saw us there at the Virginia Monument. And so when Jim Lovell was doing his thing with his camcorder, George said, well, can I take your picture and can you take a picture of me with him? Because he recognized Jim Lovell. So he took that picture.
Wow.
So that was really cool. But then 5 years later, next one, I get a call.
That's got to be his son.
Don't you steal my thunder.
I'm sorry. It just looked like somebody didn't know.
One in the car that does that. Always. I get a call on my cell phone. And he says, I'm Jeff Lovell. You had my dad and mother on a tour. And I said I was going to go to Gettysburg. And my dad said, well, you better call Deb Novotny up. Wow. 5 years later, 2017. Wow. So that's Jeff Lovell. He was 4 years old when the accident happened up in the Apollo 13. Wow. That's his wife, Annie. And in between is their 15-year-old son, James. And you see where we are. Mm-hmm. My favorite monument, 72nd, Pennsylvania. The reason why we're not at the high water mark, the park had it cordoned off and they were redoing the patios. Oh. So we couldn't do it right there. But I said, this is the next best thing. Wow. Okay, and then the next one, I asked James, how tall are you? And he said, 5'8". I said, perfect. You got to stand and pose down by the stone wall because the men talked about the stone wall they were behind being only knee high. And you're 5'8". Take a look where his knees are. Yep. Okay, that's the wall in 2017. Mm-hmm. And so they didn't have a whole lot of protection, but it was, I guess, psychologically. Mm-hmm. So he's graduated from college by now. But that's where we are, Seminary Ridge in the background. So at the end of the tour with Jim Lovell, I gave him one of my mini balls, And I also gave him the Gettysburg Quarter that has the 72nd Pennsylvania on it that came out. When did it come out? I think 2011. And I said, you know, I wished I had a picture, an autographed picture of you. And he said, I'll do you better. I'll send you the book that I worked on. And he autographed it.
Oh my.
So make sure.
Oh my.
The autograph.
Oh, that's cool.
That's cool. So that's
awesome.
that's definitely the best. Next. Okay, so this is the Gettysburg story that I decided I was going to tell these people that I had on a tour, because the guy said it was two couples, in-laws, and then the husband and wife. And they said, we're from Oxford, Mississippi. So I said, well, I don't know what I'm going to tell them. I'm going to tell the story about Jeremiah Gage, Sergeant Jeremiah Gage of the 11th Mississippi. And by the way, when I talked to this guy on the phone, because he came through the tour, not the tour center, the guide office, he said, now I want to make sure you show me the 11th Mississippi because I donated for that monument. I said, okay, we'll do that. Well, I decided to tell him the story about Jeremiah Gage, that he was wounded during the Great Cannonade before Pickett's charge. What happened was a shell hit him in the elbow and tore into his stomach. So they took him back behind Seminary Ridge, and the doctor just saw the arm because they had a blanket on him. And the doctor said, oh, I'll take care of that for you, Sergeant. Amputate, you know about it. And Jeremiah Gage said, Doctor, that's not where I'm really hurt. And he pulled the blanket aside. And his guts was all messed up. So the doctor said, I'll make you as comfortable as I can. So they got this, it's called black drop. And I'd sure like to know what that is, because I've been looking for it, like Civil War Dictionary and everything. I think it was maybe wine, or maybe coffee, if they had coffee, with morphine or opium or something in it that would put you out. So the doctor got this concoction, was going to give it to Sergeant Gage, and then the doctor said, maybe you want to write a letter to somebody. I said, okay. He said, I will write to my mother. So they got him a piece of paper, and he got the pencil or whatever he was using, and I decided, this was the first time in my guiding career. This was like 5 weeks after I had Jim Lovell, by the way, same year, 2012. I would read the letter for the two ladies and the two men. And what it was it was the in-laws of the man. So it was the woman's parents, who had an ancestor in Iverson's brigade, by the way. When I was talking to the person on the phone, I said, did the person make it through the battle? And he said no. So Iverson's pits probably was buried out there. You know where Iverson. So this is Jeremiah Gage to Patience Gage. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, July 3rd, 1863. My dear mother, this is the last letter you may ever hear from me. I have time to tell you that I died like a man. Bear my loss as best you can. Remember that I am true to my country, and my greatest regret at dying is that she is not free, and that you and my sisters are robbed of my worth, whatever that may be. I hope that this will reach you, and you must not regret that my body cannot be obtained. It is a mere matter of form anyhow. This is for my sisters too, as I cannot write more. Send my dying release to Miss Mary. You know who. J.S. Gage, 11th Mississippi, Company A. Then he took the letter and touched it to his side, and he wrote, "This letter is stained with my blood." This is for his mother. But they had a little different feeling of death, you know. There's an afterlife they knew for sure, and he was giving him something to remember him by, you know. So the second year I was guiding, it would be 1976, I remember Greg Coco, who was a battlefield guide, who later wrote the book Vastly of Misery and Strange and Blighted Land and all that. He liked to write those kind of bizarre books about the battle, human interest stories too. He came in from a tour and he said, "I saw Jeremiah Gage's letter." I said, "You didn't?" "Yeah, the family is going to donate it to the University of Mississippi that Gage had just graduated from, and then he went off to war, and they're going to give it to it. But they wanted to bring it to Gettysburg one last time." I said, "Wow, I would have loved to have seen that letter." So when I found out that this person was from Oxford, Mississippi, where the University of Mississippi is, I said, "Would you please do me a favor and see if they've got the letter, because I'd like to see it." I came back to the guide room and I said, I think I got a connection now to find out about Jeremiah Gage's letter. And they said, it was like 7 guides in the room. They said, "Who did you have on a tour?" And I said, "Well, maybe he's a professor at the University of Mississippi. He has some connection with the old Miss." Next one. This is who I had on a tour. John Grisham.
Oh, wow.
And I said the name because I knew his name. Everybody in the guide room said, "Don't you know who John Grisham is?" I said, "No. Who is he?" He's an author. He writes books like The Firm and The Pelican Brief and The Time to Kill. I said, "Well, I never heard of him."
You ain't no one to meet me.
And I did not know. I did not know him. Honest to goodness, this is a true story. And I reminded him at the end of the tour, "Now you're going to look up that letter for me, right?" He was kind of non-committal. I didn't have a lot of hopes that he was going to get back to me. And I remember Christina Moon was one of the guides in the guide room, and she said, "I have every one of his books, and I've read all his books, and you had him on a tour. You didn't even know him." The next day, I'm getting ready, having my breakfast. I'm watching the Today Show. There's Matt Lauer talking to him. I said, "Oh, I know him. He looks familiar." And this is what Matt Lauer said to him. He said, "Mr. Grisham," he said, "of all your 29 best-selling books," I don't know how many, something like that, "which one is your favorite?" And he said, "My first, A Time to Kill." And that's the only John Grisham book I have ever read. And I can see why a lot of people like it, because he's a good author. There's no doubt about it. 2 weeks later, I get an email. They've got the letter. And you are to call my office, because he gave me the number, and they will take it out of the vault. They usually do not have it on display, but I'll have them take it out of the vault so you can see it. This is 13 years later, and I haven't done it yet. But I still have the number. And let me tell you, I almost didn't make it through the letter, because these 2 ladies, Mrs. John Grisham and her mother, they were ready to cry. They were. And I was noticing their reaction, And I said, "I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to the back." And how about this one? "Send my dying release to Miss Mary." You know who. I didn't know who Miss Mary was until a couple of years later, after I had them. I had these 2 guys, father and son. They were really into the Civil War, and I gave them homework. Who is Miss Mary? They were from North Carolina. And they found out. It's Mary Wendell. And that they were fiancés until the war. And then Miss Mary broke it off. You might not come back from the war. So, and then Jeremiah Gage was slightly wounded in 1862. He did go back home to Oxford to recover, and they sparked up their relationship again. So give my dying release to Miss Mary. I'm not coming home. Mary Wendell. Windel. He was 23 years old. Just one story,
Yeah. Oh my.
And that's the way it comes out.
Oh my.
So now I know John Grisham. And every October he sends me an email about his new book coming out. I'm still on his
First.
email, I guess. Next one. This is John Ackerman. This is for you, Jordan. John Ackerman was a corporal in the 82nd Illinois. And back in 2013, I had a Jewish school. I think there were only like 9 students. They were in a van and their teacher. And they wanted to hear some Jewish stories. So I told them some Jewish stories as we're going around. But our last stop was in the cemetery, National Cemetery. And so I said that the story, I heard from one of my fellow guides. Ed Guy is really a wealth of human interest stories, especially Southern, but he likes all stories. So he told me about John Ackerman. He was the bravest guy in the 82nd Illinois. He always volunteered for the most dangerous jobs. And you see, their position was right where the National Cemetery is. After the first day's battle, they retreated to Cemetery Hill. The 82nd was out north of town on Howard Avenue, the first day's fighting. So the Confederate sharpshooters were getting closer they were coming up the hill from Mr. G's and the Farnsworth house. They're getting closer. So I guess the colonel of the 82nd said, go chase them down, get some volunteers. He told this one captain. So the captain said, I need 10 volunteers to do this, push these Confederates back down. And he's looking at John Ackerman, and John Ackerman is not putting his hand up. Well, what's wrong with you, John Ackerman? Don't you want to volunteer? And he said, well, don't make me go, Captain, because I have a premonition that if I go, I'll be killed. And the captain said, I just want volunteers. I'm not going to make you go. So he got his 10. They did push the Confederate sharpshooters back toward the Mr. G's and Farnsworth house, I guess. Comes back to the top of the hill. Well, where's John Ackerman? One of the other guys said, as soon as you left, a shell burst right over him, and a piece of shrapnel killed him.
Wow.
Next one is his grave in the Illinois section of the cemetery, National Cemetery, 82nd. So, you hear about these premonition stories often, and you hear about the ones that came out like him, but so many of them had them, and they weren't killed, so you don't hear those stories. But that's John Ackerman. So that was our last stop, and as soon as I told the story, the teacher said, can we have a few minutes here? And what they did, the teacher put the kids in a circle, and they said some prayers at his grave. First one was in Hebrew, I guess, and then one was in English. They said in English. And the Channel 8 guy, he's a reporter still for Channel 8 Lancaster Station, Matt Barkera, I think his name is. He was there. He was interviewing people because it was July 4th, 2013. I'll never forget that. It was the 4th of July, and it was the 150th anniversary of the battle. So Matt says to me, because we're both sitting, I'm standing a little bit away, do you think I can interview him just for a few minutes, the teacher? And I said, I'm sure he will. And so he was on Channel 8. But there was a cameraman there, and they did that. So that was, you don't forget these kind of tours, they're with you. Next. This guy on the far right, I met him in 2009. He was an Air Force colonel from Wright-Patterson in Dayton, Ohio. And Colonel Don Wren. And he and this major hired me to go around the battlefield. The next year, they called me up again, and we went around the battlefield. The third year, we went around the battlefield, just 2009, 10, and 11. And then the fourth year, he said, I'm going to bring a group of my Air Force people from Wright-Patterson and would like you to give a tour of the battlefield. Every year since, I've had this group. And what they want now, they do a staff ride generally, on their own. But the last 2 hours, they want me to do the National Cemetery for them. The establishment of the cemetery, and then talking about some of the people that are buried there. So I said, fantastic. So I'm already on their calendar for this year. They've already booked me. So that's his daughter on the far left side. She became a teacher, and Colonel Dawn said that this daughter of his is using me as an example, like a model, whatever. So, I don't think I'm anything special.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
So the next one.
I think the room begs to differ on that.
Okay, well, they came on one of my seminars. There's the colonel on the right, Major Crane, Barry Crane on the left. Turns out that they asked me where I went to college, and I said, California State College in California, Pennsylvania. There is a California, Pennsylvania, right? And Major Crane said, my dad was the Dean of Graduate Studies there. And I said, when? And it was the same time that I was getting my master's. Now talk about strange things going, the threads. We were talking about that, the threads that hook people together some strange ways. So the next one, that's the group at the sharpshooters. The sharpshooters wall, So they bring quite a few people on their staff rides, but they said the highlight is definitely the last 2 hours of the 3 days that they are here in the National Cemetery. So I said, well, thank you very much.
Deb is not in this picture.
I'm taking the picture. I'm taking the picture. Okay, next one. So there we are in the cemetery. I'm showing you the guide point. If you want to become a guide, you have to know how to point. You got that? So that's the classic guide point. Next one. Well, you can also do it this way.
Jamie, have you learned that yet? Jamie?
I think we're on a little round top there, and I can't remember the year it is, and it was just an ordinary tour, and they snapped the picture, and then sent me the picture. Next. Oh, I'll never forget this little guy. This is 2021. They waited until COVID was when we didn't have to wear masks. They're from Western Pennsylvania. In fact, I think pretty close to where I grew up, Brownsville, Pennsylvania. That one. And next one. Think of the devil.
Who's that?
Really? Now, this one I had this planned all along, and it was like I planted your question. But if Neil Diamond would have come, he would have topped Jim Lovell. No doubt about it. Next one. Yeah, I remember Neil Diamond looking like this too. And he's singing America from the jazz singer right there because he's
great movie.
very patriotic. And how about that one? That's an autographed one that I got from John Coop. And the next one, that's a classy, sexy one that I got from Tammy. Autographed 1994. No doubt about it. When he made his first hit, Solitary Man and Cherry Cherry in 1966, I became a Neil Diamond fan. And he still sings for me every morning when I'm getting ready for work. Every day. Next one.
That's right.
My favorite time on the battlefield is springtime. So I can't wait until the redbud will be blooming by General Sedgwick statues. Really nice down there. You know what's really best? When the dogwood, the white dogwood, blooms at the same time as the red bud. What's the proper name for this red tree?
Oh, I know that.
This could be on the next guide test.
I know that.
anything could be on the next guide test,
I
Deb.
You told me.
Gonna be at the next. Are you kidding me?
Right. You don't know?
You told
bud.
me.
It's the Judas
Yes.
red bud. Because the old story is, and I don't know where this ever came from, that Judas hanged himself on a red bud tree. And it's always been a kind of a skimpy little tree now. It's not a strong tree. You know, after he betrayed Christ. So So that's our redbud and our dogwood. Next one.
Oh,
I
yeah.
really wanted to get down into the basement of the Lutheran Theological Seminary before they made the museum up there. I wanted to see the dirt floor that Sarah Broadhead said when she went down 5 days after the battle. She saw nearly 100 badly wounded Civil War soldiers down there practically swimming in water because of the 5 days of heavy rain after the battle. It was just like it was. It was still a dirt floor. And you see, I can't even stand up because it wasn't very deep. 100 down in there.
Wow.
Now they probably cemented it, put an air conditioning unit in. I haven't been down there since 2009. Have you?
Yeah, we did a tour down there, or they had an open house, like, what,
Yeah.
6 months ago or something like that?
You got down there?
Yes, it was just for the basement, where the piping is, and it's all, it's concreted, and
It's concreted now?
I think so, and it's got
I knew it.
air conditioning and lights in the whole, I mean, everything.
Probably a new furnace or something
Yep,
down
it's
there.
all new.
See? 2009, it was still like it was in 1863.
That's all new.
Not now.
I'm glad I got down there then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like a typical basement in somebody's
How about
house.
that? Well, here's another basement. Next one.
Ugh.
This is the Solomon Powers basement. I really wanted to get down into that one because they hid about 18 wounded Union soldiers from the first day on High Street and Washington Street. And the Powers girls were acting as nurses and helped them. But, you know, that's where you see whether it's an old house or not.
Yeah.
If the basements haven't been modernized. Next one. Well, one of my favorite stories is Dr. Z. Boylston Adams setting up a triage area right opposite the Irish Brigade's monument. People look at the Irish Brigade Celtic Cross and the Wolfhound and they miss the plaque that's on that rock. I think that's the only first aid plaque I've ever seen on any Civil War battlefield. And he actually had the wounded placed on his triage rock. So I got one of my friends, John. I said, John, pretend like you're seriously wounded. He was in his uniform, so I let him lay on a blanket, a rug. He looks like he's wounded. So I like that. That's a favorite spot of mine. Next. But then there's Devil's Den. And you know, if you have little ones, little kids, they don't understand the battle as much. You got to take them to Devil's Den. Because they just love to walk among the rocks, So one time I had a lady in her 80s, I think. This is some time ago. She's probably gone. And she said, when I was 10 years old, I remember going to Devil's Den. Take me there on the tour. I want to see it. So the next one, that is actually the Devil's Den. It's not the whole rocky area. It's this cave right there. That's supposedly how the whole area got its name. So I'm showing this 80-some lady the cave, and before I know it, she's going in. She went in. She was small, she was a small little lady. She went in there, but she didn't go in all the way because if you go in all the way and then you go left, you can come out the other side. I couldn't fit in there, but she remembered doing that when she was 10 years old. She wanted to do it again. That was kind of cool. Devil's Den. Next. But I think of all the views. I love this view from the 44th New York, the castle on Little Round Top. You see Devil's Den in the background there. Nice and green. It'll be like that in a few weeks. To the next one. There we are. Little Round Top has been recently opened, and of course we had to go check it out and doing little escapades on the battlefield. So that's the spot. Next.
There you are.
When I did that flag presentation, I knew that existed. That's the splinted flagpole of the 149th New York. So I had to see it when I found out it still existed. So last October, next one. We found it.
Oh.
Tammy and I found it. We did a Syracuse to Buffalo trip. And this in Syracuse at the old courthouse. What do they call it? The fourth courthouse or something like that.
Onondaga Fort.
Onondaga County Courthouse, that's what it is. Next one is a close-up.
There it is.
I saw it with my own eyes. That was
Wow.
exciting.
That was beautiful.
Heck yeah.
Next. And we
Did
found,
you want to touch it?
Yes.
I know, right? Right? Oh, there's vapors.
we found the cemetery where the sergeant who splintered it, William Lilly, is buried. He was killed at the Battle of Wauhatchie, Tennessee in 1863, late 63. So he didn't make it through the war, November
Oh, my.
63. It was rainy. But this gal from the office took us out there and actually showed us the grave, and it was spritzing, not heavy rain, but yeah. Next. But I am a traveler, and I do love Rome. Okay, there's the Colosseum. I'm going to go through these quickly.
Okay.
Next one. I had to see Michelangelo's, I love Michelangelo, his Moses. It's in St. Peter in Chains Church in Rome. Next one. I mean, I can't imagine taking a hunk of marble and carving that.
Yep.
Michelangelo said he just had to chip away. He was inside the stone. He only had to chip away.
Yeah.
I couldn't chip anything away.
No.
Next one. I had to find this statue in Rome. Okay, that's Marcus Aurelius. He's a Roman emperor. What does that look like?
Hancock.
It does. Next one.
Yep.
I know that artist was influenced by that ancient Roman one. One hoof up, right hand out like that. Next one. Of course, I had to see the Pietà in Michelangelo's. He was only 23, I think, when he did this. The
Unbelievable.
only thing he ever signed was this. On the stripe on Mary's dress, I guess it is. He put Michelangelo made this. Because somebody was saying, when they were looking at it, oh, Raphael did this. Well, he was upset about that. So he went in after hours and carved it. His
Ah,
name.
no
23-year-old, Didn't want anybody else getting credit for his work.
Wow.
Next one. You haven't lived until you've seen in Florence, Italy, the David.
Oh yeah.
Wow. And wow.
Yeah.
His tush is pretty good too. I had that picture, but I did not put it in my program. But I can't imagine doing that. And he was under 30 when he did this, Michelangelo. Next one. And I had to get to this grave in Rome. Because it's haunting, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
It is called the Veiled Lady. It's like the soul is leaving the body and heading to heaven. The Veiled Lady. And then the next one shows you whose grave it is. Randolph Rogers.
It's called.
Guides to be. What else did he do? Here at Gettysburg. This is his grave in Rome. I'll give you a clue. The next one.
Man, I'm flashbacks to my Fred Hawthorne book.
He did the
Soldiers
5
Cemetery.
figures that are on the Soldiers National Monument in the National Cemetery.
Wow.
Randolph Rogers. Born in New York, but he wanted to learn from the masters in Rome. And that's where he died and is buried. It took me 4 times to go to Rome before I finally found Rogers' grave. Hey, they're not going to move. I'll find
I will find you.
Next one. I will find you. Of course, this was a highlight too, and you're probably looking at that and saying, what on earth is
The shroud.
that? The Shroud of Turin. In 2010, it was taken out of its case, and they only take it out every once in a while. The next one is the picture of it. It's actually a negative. It's a negative on the cloth, but supposedly it is the cloth that surrounded Jesus' body in the tomb, and when he came back to life, it left this impression of the whole body. I'm just showing you the head right there. But I thought it was going to be on display again this year because it's a Jubilee, Holy Year, but they decided it's getting frail if it's actually 2,000 some years old, and they decided not to put it out. So there goes my trip to Italy.
Oh.
Not going to go. Next one.
I'm going, so I'll look.
You going?
There you go.
I thought I'd never see the Parthenon in Athens. Oh, is that cool to see that? It's very crowded, you know. Next one, I was there.
Oh my.
Next one, even though the Parthenon is great, I like this little temple up on the same plateau, the Maidens Temple. See, the columns are maidens. I think it's cool. Next
Yeah,
one.
very cool.
See, I'm there. I proved I was there.
Proof.
We believed you.
And from little, I wanted to see Stonehenge. So I got there. Next one. That's something. And I always wanted to see the Little Mermaid in Copenhagen and Denmark. But when it comes right down to it, the next one, there's a lot to see in the United States.
Oh my.
And I've been out west 5 times, gone across the country, not flown, actually, you know, on the ground. And there's a lot to see. And my favorite places, we'll go through these quickly. And that's definitely Mount Rushmore. There's Lincoln. And I hope nobody else joins them because they are our great leaders.
Absolutely.
Next one. Old Faithful. And it was Old Faithful every 70 minutes. It seemed like it was going off, and it's cool. Next.
Oh
The
my.
Grand Canyon. It's really
Oh
beautiful.
my.
You gotta get there early in the day or right before sunset to get these kind of shades and shadows. Next. At one state. At one state I've never been in. Which one is it?
North Dakota.
North Dakota.
North Dakota.
Why not, right?
You're not missing anything.
I already know what I want to see in North Dakota.
What you want to say? I'll
What?
teach you.
I want to see Teddy Roosevelt's ranch.
Okay.
I want to see Fort Abraham Lincoln. Do you know what they say about that?
No.
George Armstrong Custer left there alive.
Ha.
He didn't get back.
Uh-huh.
Little Bighorn got in the way.
Yeah.
Lewis and Clark wintered with some friendly Indians in North Dakota. The Wyandotte. Is it Wyandotte? I have to look that up. So there's a few things, and there is a bust of Abraham Lincoln in Hillsborough, North Dakota. The same bust is over in Oslo, Norway. North Dakota gave it to them in 1913. I'll never get to Oslo.
There's a bust of Abraham Lincoln in Italy, in the little country of San Marino. Did you go through San
No.
Marino? It's 3 miles long,
Didn't go
and
there.
it's up on a huge
Wow.
hilly rock. And
I wonder how many are around.
And I didn't know about that, so I went in. I'm like, "There's Abraham Lincoln."
you
There's a
saw
bust in there. Yeah, I saw it, but I wasn't looking for it. I just happened to be there.
Oh, you didn't even know it was there?
No, I didn't know it was there.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of nations
That's
of
cool.
the world admire him and what he did and what he stood for.
Yeah.
So one of these days I will get out to North Dakota. Next. There's a few things I have not seen in the West. I've never been to Arches in Utah. Beautiful, it seems to me. Next one. I've never seen Devil's Tower.
But it's in the movie.
Close Encounters.
It
Yeah.
just get some
Right.
mashed
I
potatoes.
liked
you know.
Devil's
Just get some mashed
Tower
potatoes.
before the Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's in Wyoming.
My God,
So
that came out in
I've
like
never been there.
1948.
We've been there.
Next.
Nice.
I want to see this stuffed horse. I know, it sounds strange that I want to see a stuffed horse, but it's at the University of Kansas in Lawrence, Kansas. It belonged to Miles Keogh, who was on Buford's staff at the Battle of Gettysburg, but who was also with George Armstrong Custer at Little Bighorn, and he didn't make it, but his horse did. The only living thing that made it through Custer's last stand is this horse
Oh, wow.
that was used by the 7th U.S. Cavalry as like their mascot, and nobody ever rode that horse after Little Bighorn. But when the horse died, they had him taxidermied, and so he's on display out there in Lawrence, Kansas. Next one. I did see the solar eclipse, and that was in April 8th, 2024. I didn't take this picture, but you can see the solar prominences coming out. The next one I picked up from the Facebook too. Look at that.
Oh my.
Wow.
When I saw it, it didn't look like that, but somebody got that picture. But this next one, that's me and my brother. in Cleveland,
Ha.
in my cousin's deck. I set up my telescope right there, so it was easy to watch it. Of course, we've got our glasses there, you know. And the next one, we're modeling our glasses.
No kidding, like old school.
If you've never seen a solar eclipse, it is something else. Have any of you seen one? Did you see it, partial one last time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something to see the solar when and it gets dark and you can hear the little critters coming out, those night critters coming out. It only lasted about 4 minutes. It was short, but that was exciting. Next one. But I do like cemeteries.
Yes!
I do like cemeteries, so
Dan Sickles.
I was told to be the guide, one of the guides for Arlington National Cemetery for a bunch of guides that would go down there. And this is October 20th, 2024. So before that,
Scouting
two-
mission.
yeah, recon.
Recon.
We did a recon. So we found Dan Sickles at a selfie there. Then the next one, I love Annie Etheridge and her story of the 3rd Michigan, the volunteer nurse that was actually out there when the bullets were flying, trying to evacuate the wounded to the Trossel farm. That's her grave in Arlington. Next one. The probably most thrilling thing I ever did, and I didn't realize how thrilling it was until it happened. The guides decided to get a wreath and lay a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknowns. So they picked us 4 there. That's Roy Frampton. So he guided before me. And then right behind him is Ed Guy, and then that's Andy Custer. She's writing a book on Kilpatrick and South Cavalry Field. So they picked us 4 to represent all the guides. So we're about ready to walk down to the Tomb of the Unknown. So next one, we're there. So, you know, they have, this is spit and polish. These guys really, they do it a lot, I guess. The old Army, the 3rd Army. So we're in the front there. I think we're just moving up with the wreath. And the next one, of course, they play taps, salute. And that was exciting.
Oh, I know that
was
one.
exciting. Then when we were in Washington, D.C., you two, I said, let's go to Rock Creek Cemetery because there's works of art there. Look at this one. This is called Rabboni. I don't know exactly the story behind this, you know, why this person, but these rich people, they hire these artists to do for their tomb of their grave. And the next one is one of the most haunting I've ever been in. We call this grief, but there's technically no name for it. It's one of the Henry Adams's wife. She committed suicide in the 1880s. But he had St. Gaudens, who did the 54th Massachusetts up in Boston Common, you know, with Robert Gould Shaw leading them into the 54th Massachusetts. Same artist did this. Next one, just look at that. Isn't that haunting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can find this in cemeteries. Next one.
Is that the one in
You can also go to the Lincoln Cottage in Washington, D.C.
Lord.
And I needed some perspective here. You know, Lincoln was 6'4". How tall are you, Mark?
5'10".
Okay, about right. With that top hat, he even looks taller, of course. But that's the Lincoln Cottage. Next one. But one of my favorite places in Pennsylvania is Ricketts Glen. 23 waterfalls in about a 2.5 mile trail. Beautiful. It was cold that day. It was
That whole trip.
Oh, is that the one?
It was cold. Yeah, that was a cold October.
Oh, my.
That was October. See how the trees are changing. But these waterfalls are beautiful.
Yeah.
I just love waterfalls. Next one. Now this is back in 2020. They had just cleared a lot of stuff on Little Round Top. And you see what my friend John is pointing to, that little curved wall there? There's a story that I read in Fonce's book on the second day about a Confederate soldier who had been wounded in the attack up the hillside. And he couldn't actually move. But there were sharpshooters at the base of Big Round Top and Devil's Den, And of course there's Union men up above. So men from, I think, the 16th Michigan went down there and built this little semicircular wall around this guy to protect him. And when they cleared off the little round top area, I said, I think that's the wall. But I didn't walk down to it. I took the picture from the 16th Michigan there, but I wanted to walk down. So the next one, they got me down there. There's the wall there. You can see Devil's Den in the background there. So
Did the guy survive?
yeah, he did. I think he was a prisoner, but they couldn't pull him up because they'd been shot themselves to try to pull him up. His name was John Roberts from the 4th Texas.
Huh.
And I'm pretty certain that he became a prisoner, and I don't know if he was exchanged. John Roberts, 4th Texas. Next one. I wanted to see every monument on this battlefield. 1,815. I never saw this one until I think 2021, because one of my fellow guides says, I know where the right flank marker is of the 6th Pennsylvania Cavalry, the Lancers, off the Emmitsburg Road. And I said, please take me there. That's the only marker I've not seen. So he knew how to get through the thicket, and that is the right flank marker. So now I've seen them all, as far as I know.
Wow.
Next one. I love Henry K. Bush Brown. He's the artist who did Reynolds and Meade and Sedgwick here at Gettysburg. He did Mary Jemison at Letchworth State Park. She was abducted during the French and Indian War from Buchanan Valley when she was like 14 years old from these Indians that were working with the French and Indian War. And she was taken to Pittsburgh, and then another tribe took her up to western New York, and she lived with them the rest of their life. And this is on her grave. Look at the next one. The detail of Henry K. Bush Brown. How he got to do this, I don't know. But I wish this was closer to here, like up in Buchanan Valley. They have a Mary Jemison, but I don't know who they got to do that one because it's not that great. But I love it, so Tammy and I stopped there on our New York trip. Next one. But this was really exciting because somebody had connections to the Carlisle Museum and let me hold a sharpshooter's rifle. That's a Henry?
Mm-hmm.
That's a Henry.
Why was I not there that day?
I don't know, where you weren't there.
Yeah, I don't know.
It must have been your day off.
It's probably on Friday.
I saw some really cool things up there that the common people do not see, so that was really great. Next one. I was involved in a few monuments myself, like this one. This is the Civil War Women's Memorial in Evergreen. I was on the committee, and I told the artist, Ron Tunnison, she was 6 months pregnant, make sure she has a baby bump. And that's why
That's a
Elizabeth
great picture.
Thorne, who represents all the women who did things after the battle, that's why she has a baby bump. Next one. So we celebrated the 20th birthday of that monument in 2002.
Wow.
Time's flying.
Wow.
No, 2022. 2020. That's Brian Kennel, caretaker of Evergreen. Next one. I got after the Civil War Roundtable to put this marker up for Alan Fraser. He was one of the little kids killed after the battle because the guy was trying to get the powder out of this shell that he picked up on the battlefield in front of the Solomon Powers house, his stone yard. He was ready to slam the shell on a boulder there, a rock. And this little kid, Alan, he's only 13 or 14, I think. Don't do that, that's dangerous. He did it anyway. And a piece of shrapnel pretty much cut Alan in half. So he was killed right away. He had no tombstone, but we knew where he was buried. So the Civil War Roundtable at Gettysburg paid for that monument a few years ago. And the next one. But I found out that there was one of the Powers girls, Ginny, that did not have a tombstone. But she was buried there. She died in Baltimore, but she was a nurse at the time of the battle, and she had to have a stone. So we got her one. The next one, there she is, Elizabeth Virginia Smith Ginny, they called her. She was the last of the Powers girls who had been nurses to die in 1919. And her two sons from Baltimore didn't pay to put a monument on her grave. I think everybody needs one. Even if you're cremated, you should still have a stone that you were on this earth. Next. So my next goal is to try to get
Oh,
a
yeah.
tombstone for this man, Sergeant Roland Morse of the 13th Massachusetts. I know where he's buried in Boston area. He has no tombstone. So far, no takers. No takers want to get the project going to get a tombstone for him. He died at the Battle of Gettysburg. He deserves a tombstone. least
Nobody's
one of those
petitioned
government ones.
the Defense Department for it?
You know
or-
what? You have to be a relative and do the application, and
But you
it's a
can't
big
do it without
process.
being a relative, huh?
I think you have to have. He was never married, didn't have any kids.
Mm.
I think it's a big rigmarole. Talk about red tape.
Okay.
Really?
But I'm trying to get some Boy Scouts from Boston to do it. That sounds like an Eagle project to me.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
that'd be a good one.
That's a
Next.
good way to go about it.
But I think one of the greatest things I ever volunteered to do is to get a team of people to put the flags out for Memorial Day in Evergreen Cemetery. So this is last May. You know a couple people there. On the far right.
You're right.
Somebody on the left there, I think I know. That's Carol Reardon right in the middle
Yeah,
there.
Miss Carol.
So I usually have 16 to 20 volunteers the Friday before Memorial Day weekend. 4 p.m. unless it's pouring down rain. And my team goes out there with maps and the flags and they get the job done. I only do the French and Indian War through the Spanish-American War. Somebody else does World War I up. Next.
Deb, we got to.
I think one of the coolest things to do in Gettysburg on a yearly basis is go to the luminaries on Remembrance Day. Is November 19th. That's the day Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address. And I guess because of the burn ban or whatever they had last November, they decided not to use live candles. But they use these fake ones, whatever they are.
Battery operated.
Yeah.
And you know what? They didn't look as impressive there, I thought, but the pictures came out pretty good.
Right.
Because that's the last November.
The full moon didn't help.
Yeah, the full
It
moon.
was beautiful. Though.
It
was
was
really-
absolutely.
But it's really something.
The
Well, we got this.
They read the names.
yeah
Remember, we were standing
Space
outside.
station.
We got to see
Yeah.
the safe space station too.
yeah last year.
Oh,
The
Oh,
space
yeah.
station.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
space
ISS
station.
went by
Yeah.
on the back porch.
Yeah.
Yep.
It just went over a couple of nights ago.
Yeah.
Of course, I went out to look for it. It was like
Yeah.
7 minutes. It was a long. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember we did that right on the
Yeah.
deck.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next one. Oh, these are my
Uh-oh.
favorites. Okay, you have your favorites after a while. I've got 2 enlisted, 1 in each army, and 2 generals. So this is Ben Crippen shaking his fist at the Confederates as the Union Army's retreating away from McPherson's farm. You can see the barn over there on the far left. Chambersburg Pike in the background. 143rd Pennsylvania. I put him in my flag story, if this sounds familiar. But he's definitely my favorite enlisted man. Sergeant Ben Crippen died near that spot. Didn't make it. Next one. Ed Guy, who's my good friend, fellow guide, is an artist. And he did this Ben Crippen for me because he knows I like Ben Crippen a lot. Pastels. Look at those blue eyes. Next one. And of course he's on the 143rd Pennsylvania Monument. Still shaking his fist. I love it. Next one. This is my favorite enlisted man in the Confederate Army. Anybody know him? Sergeant Richard Kirkland.
Ah.
Now you know him?
Yes,
Yeah.
Mary Heights.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
He was with the 2nd South Carolina, Kershaw's brigade, so he would have been fighting on the Stony Hill, Wheatfield kind of area. But he's most famous for the next one. going over the stone wall at Marie's Heights in Fredericksburg in December 1862 and giving water to the wounded Union soldiers. So this is down at Fredericksburg. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
Me and Carla and
Yeah.
Tracy and
We were
Brian,
down
we were
there.
there
You were down there?
together.
Together, yeah.
Do you know the artist who did this? Felix D. Weldon. Do you know what else he did? The flag raising of the Iwo Jima
Iwo Jima, the Weldon?
down near Arlington.
Okay.
He was supposed to do our Tennessee monument. 3D, 3 soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't raise $250,000. So they have what they have out there now.
Yeah.
It's $28,000 is what they could raise. But he was supposed to do our Tennessee
Oh, I didn't know
monument.
that.
Next one, my favorite Union general, John Fulton Reynolds from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Next one, handsome guy.
There he is.
You know, somebody said, why do I have him as my favorite? 2 reasons. Number 1, he was born in Pennsylvania, and so was I. Number 2, I like men with beards. Okay?
There you go, Jeff.
And I like the close ones. I don't like the ZZ Top.
Man, we're getting all kinds of
I always liked him.
aren't we?
And notice in that picture he has the black hat, the hardy hat, the regular U.S. Army hat.
Mm-hmm.
So he's all decked out in his probably Class A uniform there. Killed at Gettysburg the first day. Next one. My favorite Confederate general is Lewis A. Armistead. With his hat on his sword, that's an Alfred Wood drawing done almost at the time, I guess, after the battle. You see Alonzo Cushing down here. Where's your pointer? He's laying down there just past his cannon.
Where'd it go?
I don't know where the pointer is, but he's see him down there. Stayed with his gun. He knew he was a goner. And there's a little marker showing, I think, where he fell near the copse of trees, which you can see the copse of trees in the back.
Deb, it's a parrot.
That's a parrot, and I know he had 3-inch ordnance guns. But maybe Alfred Wood did not know that. Next one. That's the Rothermel painting of Armistead with his hat on his sword up at the Harrisburg State Museum. Beautiful painting if you've never seen it. That was done in 1876. I think that's a parrot behind him.
I was just getting ready to say, it looks like it, doesn't it?
And of course the next one. That one is a more modern print, but I think that's one of my favorites right there.
Yes.
Yes.
Is that Dale Gallen?
Dale Gallen, yes, sir.
So Armistead. The guide that my dad hired to take us around my first visit here told me the story of Ben Crippen and General Armistead with his hat on his sword. What hooks a little 11-year-old girl to this story? It's those 2 stories.
The beards.
But Ben Crippen didn't have a beard.
No, he didn't have a beard.
But he had beautiful blue eyes. So I got blue eyes and a beard.
So I want you to realize something. You all have to realize something. You really shouldn't be a favorite of Deb Novotny.
What?
And Crippen died at Gettysburg. Richard Kirkland died at Chickamauga, September '63. Reynolds died at Gettysburg. Armistead died at Gettysburg. They're all my favorites. Don't be a favorite of Deb
I'm
Novotny.
shaving my beard and moving to Montana.
Next one.
North Dakota.
And of course,
Oh yeah, North Dakota.
you
Some come
realize
visit.
Lewis Armistead was the second Confederate general to receive a monument at Gettysburg. This one, the friend to friend, which a lot of people miss because they don't go into the annex. This is 1993. There's, of course, 3 Confederate generals on monuments, aren't there?
Lee, Armistead, and Longstreet.
Very good. So Lee came first, then Armistead, and then Longstreet. And of course that's Captain Henry Bingham, not Tom Chamberlain. As the movie.
What?
Yeah, okay, next one.
Oh!
familiar, huh?
Oh.
I have to tell you this. In all my years, going through time, I've met a lot of good friends. And, it's this group and this group and this group, but this is one of the best groups that I have met. So
Hey,
I wanna
here to all of
thank
you.
you, for introducing me to your friends here. Let's go.
Oh, you're
How
Oh!
about that one? That person looks familiar. You just won that Gary Cassidy.
Yeah, well, that's debatable. I still,
That's debatable.
I still
we don't
question.
disagree with you on
We
that.
Right.
still had that story. We were Rourke's, and
Yes.
Randy with the Randy thing.
Yep.
And he had Gary there giving that away, and Randy
Yeah.
had Dale.
Who
that
was
handed
handing out the ticket?
tickets? Okay.
Right.
Randy.
Fringy.
Oh,
Dale
was
I
doing
was
it.
Yes.
handing out the tickets,
You
yeah.
gave it.
I questioned it at the time.
So then, who picked the ticket out? You?
No, Randy did.
Randy did. He won the ticket. He's giving out the tickets, and he won.
Ah.
See?
That's a
Fringy.
conflict
They
of
said it was
interest.
rigged.
Fringy.
That wouldn't have happened if Susie was there.
I'm going to tell you.
It's on my coffee
I
table.
want to tell you. Dale gave me the ticket, and I gave it to you.
Is that right?
And then he gave me my own. You had the winning ticket, and I had it in my hand before I gave it to you because I was sitting right
So
beside
you want it?
No, you won it fair and square. I guess.
Oh my.
Next.
Yay.
Oh, I think I see a couple other people here.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember that. Oh, Mr. Jackson in the house.
Okay.
I know
I
exactly.
have to
what
tell
it
you,
is.
I've taken thousands of people around the battlefield. But I get the biggest thrill out of trying to hook the little ones to the story. Whether they're hooked or not, I don't know that. But I love to take the little ones around. And look at Jackson. It's like he's really listening to
Oh,
what
he's
I'm
locked.
saying.
He's locked.
So I thought that was cool. And did I write down that was August 20th, 2023? That's what my picture said.
The retirement year.
That was
Yeah.
the retirement
Yeah.
year. Okay.
Yeah.
Next one. Well,
There he is.
How about that group right there?
Mr. Jackson.
We always have to show the little ones the cannon. Okay.
And not let them
Because
climb on it.
there's no climbing on it, but touch it and feel the vibes of history. I tell
Feel
them.
the vibes.
Who's that other guy on the far left?
Mr. Jackson.
I don't know.
I don't know. He don't have a beard.
With no beard.
No beard even.
You know, I looked at that and said, "Is that somebody I know?" I like the beard
That was one
better,
of the
so
before.
don't get rid of it.
I'm on it.
Next
Man.
My favorite
Oh,
witness
that is
tree.
the best.
I believe it's
Oh,
a witness
huh.
tree. You know where it is.
Yeah.
Devil's
Mm.
Den. Okay? So that's my favorite tree.
Yeah.
Hope it never dies while I'm alive.
That's a great picture.
Next one.
Yep.
Oh, there you go.
You gotta get by the book. Okay?
By
That
the
means something, you know? That's my favorite spot, so there we are that day. Next. And how about this group?
Yeah.
Oh.
And Charlene.
Yeah, beside
And David.
Yes.
Oh,
Wait,
yeah, I see you. Yeah, there you are.
See
Yeah.
Miss There's Dale.
Yeah.
Who's
Miss
on the far
Gail.
right side?
Charlene. There's
Charlene.
Oh, is that
That's
Charlene over
that's
there?
Yeah, that's Charlene.
Coop's wife.
Charlene is Coop's wife.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
There's-
there's David.
That's my husband in behind
That's
me.
your
Oh, I
husband.
remember
What's
that.
his name?
David.
David.
Who's the dingy blonde? What year was that? I don't remember.
Oh, my.
We did
What's that
Evergreen.
one for?
1998.
It would have been.
Shush.
I don't know what the year that is.
We'll have to get the book.
It would be.
Because that's
Yeah,
David's
I'll get
only
the
visit
book.
here.
It's
The
about
book.
it's
We've
about
done
3
so
or
many,
4
you know.
years ago.
Well,
Keep
I'm
track
in
anymore.
Evergreen. I'm showing you
You say where y'all at?
Evergreen.
We're in Evergreen.
Is that the year we can?
Was this the year we did the Lincoln Walking Tour?
Yes, I think.
Oh,
yes.
really?
I sent Tammy to get the book because my
Well,
husband signed the book.
Yeah, that
because
would've been-
Oh, there you
Lincoln
go.
Baby
That would've
Gettysburg
been,
Rest
yeah.
there. I would have done that last.
Mhm.
This is the Lincoln. That was about 3 years ago, was it?
I think so.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I remember it.
Yeah,
Is
it
he
was
a
3 years
history
ago.
buff?
Mine.
No, not at all.
Okay,
Okay.
next one.
Aha!
The guides have just done this. This is the first time in all these years
There's
they
David.
had an honors banquet for any guide who had
Clark.
guided 40 years or more. And there were 15 of us, and 12 could come, the other 3 couldn't. So they gave us a nice tablet. I haven't figured out where to put it up.
Oh my.
They gave us
I hit
this.
the hole.
And then one of my fellow guides works with stained glass.
Oh, nice.
Oh, those are those things on the
And
table.
made this,
Wow.
Yeah.
this is our guide patch.
really nice.
My number is 14, so they put that on there, and then how many
Oh
years?
my goodness.
Yeah, that's
Feel the
nice.
vibe of history.
And they plan to do this every year. So any guides who weren't in, they may have 30-some years, when they want to do it every year if anybody hits 40 years or more.
That's
So,
that's pretty.
to be honored
That's
by
nice.
your colleagues, that's kind of a top-notch thing
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
in my
Yeah.
mind.
Did you see they posted on
Next.
Facebook today? Or
Did they?
whatever that. Yeah.
They
the-
forwarded you to celebrate your 50th from the Guide Association.
They did.
Yes,
I'll have to
ma'am.
look.
That looks like some
That's the
So I'm always, I haven't been satisfied that I know everything about the battle. No one should, because the battle is too big a story.
Yeah.
So I still love to do research. So just this past October, I dug into what the Adams County Historical Society has with the Powers girls. I've been really captivated by this family, Solomon Powers and his daughters, who all were nurses in their 20s, nurses during the battle, and all were teachers. Okay. Well, this is the actual photograph that has been reproduced many times. This is the actual photograph that was just donated recently to the society that I found. And then the next one is the one that didn't get in the picture because she died in 1864 from probably tuberculosis. Maybe in that damp basement that I showed you a little while ago. Cynthia was her name. Next one. They have this donation that just came, I guess, to the society. The other pictures of the Solomon Powers family.
Wow.
The one on the top left.
Oh my.
That's Solomon Powers, and it's not the same picture that we usually know. And then that's Mrs. Solomon Powers, Catherine. I've never seen a picture of her. Next door is Alice Powers. They were labeled. Some of them were labeled. She was the one that never got married. That's Ginny, the one that didn't have a tombstone in Evergreen Cemetery. Ginny Powers Smith. Down at the bottom left, that's Alice and Lydia, who was the youngest of the sisters. And then that's Jane. Jane Powers McDonald taught in my house.
Oh, wow.
That I bought in 1988. And I had no idea who taught in that house. I knew it was a schoolhouse. So maybe that's why I've been drawn to the Powers, and I never knew it until, well, Tim Smith put a book out about John Burns. Because Burns went over from where he was a tenant farmer and cleared the snow off the sidewalks and got the potbelly stove going for the teacher, because the teachers had to do that back in those days. They were the janitors as well as the teachers. So John Burns was in my house, and I didn't know any of this in 1988 when I bought it.
How cool is that?
So someone said that I should write a book about the Powers. And then another person told me I should write a book, an updated book on Evergreen Cemetery. And they're all buried in Evergreen Cemetery, so I could kind of combine both of them if I ever get ambitious and want to write a book. The next one. There's nothing like a sunset on the battlefield. With my favorite monument, the 72nd, but the best sunset I ever took a picture of was 1985, I think it was, or 6. Next one is in
Oh wow.
Little
Wow.
Round Top. Beautiful. Can't beat General
Wow.
Warren silhouetted in,
It's like
okay?
a watercolor.
You know it.
Wow.
It was red, orangish red for till an hour after sunset. For the whole 180 degrees. It was a beautiful
Wow.
sunset. 85, 86, something like that.
Wow.
Next one. That's me. Giving a tour to 8th graders. Somebody else took that picture and sent it to me. And that's the only picture I have of myself giving a tour on a bus.
Wow.
Getting those 8th graders hooked.
Mm-hmm.
Next. That's me. Thank you.
Oh my God! Holy crap! Wow!
Thank you for celebrating with me.
Wow!
Thank you, Tammy, for being the hostess with the mostest.
Yay!
Yay!
Oh,
Yay!
I just enjoy